So I'm basically going to talk about my experience and kind of my opinions on optimization. So it might be a bit of a bold move to write truth in the title. But yeah, it's more dramatic, and I get to pay homage to the creator of the internet, Al Gore. And optimization. So what I mean by optimization is basically any kind of rational or logical approach to incrementally improve your website or your business using the data that you gather on said site or business. Let's get started. Where do I point this? Okay. So usually when people start off on their A/B testing journey, optimization journey, they tend to start with A/B testing, because A/B testing is simple, right? Therefore, it must be easy. And as a concept, A/B testing is kind of simple, straightforward, right? You have some kind of change, you want to experiment, is it going to perform better than the original version? So you open up your testing tool, you create that test variation, you run the test for a little while, and then at some point the tool tells you, hey, you've got a winner, or you don't got a winner, right? Piece of cake. Well, unfortunately, in reality, it's not quite as simple as that. So you can't really trust that result from your optimization tool or A/B testing tool unless you've taken certain things into account. So you have to have a representative sample of data, right? You should have eliminated biases that might skew the results. Have to take into account seasonality. You'll preferably want to test for several business cycles. And like all of these basically mean you should possibly isolate your tests from other traffic, possibly. You probably want to run your tests longer than you expected. Of course, if your data is invalid, so if you have garbage data coming in, your results are going to be garbage. So invalid data, invalid results, right? And even if you do everything right, everything is just top-notch, right? There's always a possibility that it just ain't so, right? You never have 100% probability that this is better, okay? And so that's A/B testing, but we have all these other options, right? We've got our multivariate tests, we've got our multi-armed bandits, all sorts of machine learning algorithms. And all of these techniques, they come with their own, pros and cons, certain use cases where they're applicable. In some cases, maybe you don't want to use them, they're not as effective, and you need to be aware of how to use them in order to be able to use them effectively, okay? So all of a sudden, optimization got a bit more complicated, right? We have all this technological, methodological complexity. And then if we take a step back and look a bit, look at the big picture, we should be asking ourselves, what should we be testing, right? So we always say that you shouldn't test your assumptions. There's the infamous highest paid person's opinion, the HIPPO, and how you shouldn't test that, because you're basically just guessing, right? You'd rather make more informed decisions and be data-driven and so forth. And that adds the complexity of using data. And then, of course, we have to ask, are we measuring the right thing? So people seem to be fixated on the conversion rate, right? The proportion of visitors who do that beneficial action, maybe purchase. But does that give you a good indication of what the big picture is? So let's say that you sell some kind of physical goods, you have a return policy. You might have a higher conversion rate for one version, but maybe the returns are higher still. So maybe that version isn't actually performing better, even though the conversion rate might tell you that it is. And then if you're selling some kind of service, maybe your subscription rates are higher, but maybe the subscriptions are ending sooner. So you want to look at lifetime value or some other metric like that. So this is getting a little inconvenient, right? And when we want to look at the big picture, we want to optimize the business, we don't want to optimize local maxima, we kind of start to bump into a couple of hurdles. So depending on your position, depending on your organizational structure, you might not have enough authority to make the decisions, the testing decisions that would let you impact your business optimally. You might not have enough data, so maybe you can't link your testing data with the return data. And if you're working on a strict deadline and you're trying to manage all of this complexity, so all the different techniques, the tools, the data collection, figuring out what you should test, are we measuring the right things, you can quickly run out of time. And okay, this is quite a bit of doom and gloom, don't you think? You might be thinking to yourself, well, I mean, it can't be this hopeless. Antti surely has become enlightened on his optimization path. Now, the next slide, I'm going to reveal some kind of paradigm shift in optimization. Right? I'm going to show you the one true method for sweeping aside all of this complexity. Right? Well, unfortunately not. So, in my experience, your mileage may vary, there is no silver bullet. We do have to deal with this somehow, and we can't kind of hide away from it behind some A/B testing tool. And, but I don't really think that's really the problem. So a lot of things are hard, and they're still worth doing, right? I think the problem with optimization is that people tend to have unrealistic expectations as to the speed and the simplicity of how it works. And due to these unrealistic expectations, we start to see optimization as not valuable when we do something wrong the first couple of times, right? And I think these expectations are formed due to some misconceptions. So we tend to think that the systems that we're optimizing are simple, but they're not. They're usually quite complex. And the tools that we're using, the methods that we're using, they're also complex. And lo and behold, the data collection on which all of this other stuff depends on is also complex. But even though I don't think there's a silver bullet, at least yet, there's a silver lining in that if we do optimization well, there are benefits in all of this. And in fact, I would argue that we should do optimization. So all of these tools, all these techniques, all of this knowledge is available to us. If we don't use it, we're paying an opportunity cost. So we have the power to experiment. If we don't, then we lose out on those better versions or improvements. And at least we're not really mitigating risks as well, since if we only show a loser to 10%, then that's sure better than 100. And in addition to doing optimization, I think that we should start managing expectations better, because otherwise you're just setting yourself up for failure. And even if like all these machine learning stuff seems kind of far away, you can still do optimization by laying a solid foundation. So you want to work on data collection, making sure it's valid, making sure you're tracking the right stuff, that you're analyzing it properly. You should understand your customers. That's key, right? If you don't understand your customers' motivations and needs, then you're going to misinterpret the quantitative data that you're gathering. And you should also develop your organization, right? So we don't want silos, we want information to be shared, we want to be aligned, and so on. And I think kind of like the way I would go about it is to just take one thing and get that done well, and then move on to the next one. So the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, not a 100-meter dash. So don't try to do everything all at once. Focus on doing one thing right, and then work your way up. And that's actually it for me.
Yay!